Hello everyone, just another quick Alanah update at the start of a Play Watch Listen, which we have happen more often than we should. I just wanted to let everyone know that our next episode will be live from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. next Tuesday. That is Pacific time, Tuesday 24th. It'll be my lunch break, so it will be those exact times. We cannot go any longer. Unfortunately, gotta be very specific to fit me in there to make it work. But yes, we will be live celebrating our 40th episode and almost our 1 year anniversary as well. Also, I'm aware there is some lag in this episode if you're watching the video version and the audio levels are a little bit off. We have a new person who has technically joined the team to edit the show and is going through the process of learning the ridiculous kinks that come with balancing audio. It's very difficult and it is not his fault. I just wanted to give you all the heads up.
I seriously consider driving down to where either our mayors, not our mayor, but our city councilman, specifically for where I live, banging on his door and passionately, not requesting, demanding both street bumps and parking signs, because people park in front of our house and it's because they just want to.
I may be selling maps.
Yeah.
That may be on me.
Video game starter.
Why is people parking in front of your house a problem?
Because I just hate it. I just
You like
hate
a
it.
clear
All right,
view of
that's
across
fair.
the street. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Part of it is like
it's the get off my
we
lawn.
have a
There is no
garage.
other
It
explanation.
is. But there'd be people that's like, oh, you're just going to park your car in front of my street for forever. Like, you just leave it there.
That's true.
And there's also, like, our house is built, like, and a lot of houses in Los Angeles were this way, too. It's like, it's a 2-car garage. It's like, no, it's not, because when that house was built, nobody had 2 cars. And so, like, 1 car fits in there great, but 2 cars will not. And so I can't fit my car in the garage, so I have to park, like, right in front of our house. So I do that, and there's nothing worse than coming home from the one time that I get out in the week. And someone's parked in front of our house. It's like, I can't park in front of, I've literally said, I can't park in front of my own house. I say that. The other thing is that there's speed bumps that people come hauling ass down our street. And we have live on a quiet street, but somebody put up on Waze or whatever. It's like, hey, did you know you could cut around and go through this really quiet pedestrian street and just pretend you're still on the 101? It's terrible.
The children and small animals
Dude,
just melt on the front end of your bumper.
There's
as you
only
go
been
through
one
there.
time where I was out in the front yard and I was watering, because Traveler loves to play with the garden hose. And I literally was just, I heard someone careening down the corner and I just went, sloop. Just let that water hit their windshield.
I like it. There was a very big speed bump controversy. I lived in...
Speed bump, not street bump. Yeah, street bump's a different thing.
They also
I don't know, I just
occasionally
thought it
call
was
them
American bullshit.
speed humps.
I love
I've
a
always
speed bump.
wondered-
They are humps.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
But those only on Wednesday.
I lived in like a sort of, it wasn't a gated community, but effectively the same thing.
It had a
That had like a body corporate, and you would have to pay the body corporate to like, deal with the stuff. And there were some very stupid rules they had.
To deal with the riffraff.
Pretty much.
Climb
But
fences.
basically it was just a board of of old white men complaining about things nobody else cared about. None of the residents cared about. Like, you weren't allowed to park in one of the parking bays you could only have one guest at a time park in any of the parking bays, but all of the rest in the entire place would be empty. And they'd be like, well, we saw 2 cars and people came to your house. And we'd be like, but they're all empty. And they'd be like, it's against the rules. It doesn't matter. I'm like, they're never full. Irrelevant. You got to get them out of there. They're not allowed to park in the parking bays. The other one
That's too much
was
time on
that
our hands.
it was
gonna
really
say,
bad.
The busybody is one of the lowest.
We just
forms
started
of
calling
life.
them Nazis.
Next to
We'd be like the
politician.
Nazis of the estate, who were just very upset about everything. We had a speed bump issue where they installed speed bumps that were illegally loud. They were not the concrete ones, because those are more expensive. They were like ones that were like bolted onto the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And that happened, I guess, before the estate Nazis started working there. And they held this full meeting that was like rallying to make sure that we could get these concrete speed bumps that nobody really gave a fuck about, because it didn't make a big difference. They were like,
Where was this?
in Australia, it was just like, let me not ever be you later in life. I would prefer not to have to worry about speed bumps. But to be fair, in Troy's defense, when you live in a quiet neighborhood and you got kids, I understand.
My favorite is a sign that says "Drive like
This is
you
the
live
content
here,"
you tune in for.
and I was like, "Yeah, dude, just do that. Just drive like you live here." And we have a lot of kids in our neighborhood, and especially after COVID, it became a little bit more idyllic, and people would we do more walks. That's the main thing that we do, is we just get out and walk. And so when people come hauling ass, and there's not a stop sign, so they can just kind of come around and just haul ass down the street, it's just like, dude, slow down. Anyway, but
I think we should have the whole podcast be about this. Actually,
I really want a
topic.
photo of Troy in a like a wicker chair in the lawn with a little little radar. Yeah, exactly. Right, he's got a little notepad writing down license plate numbers. And
8 miles over, dear. Did you see 8 miles? 8 miles will kill somebody.
It's true. Every K over is a killer. That's what we say in Australia. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Play, Watch, Listen. I feel weird that we're introing the show
Too
even this early.
Do you have coffee right now?
What's wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I
started to not because we're doing it later. You've been drinking that for a while.
It's probably 20 minutes, yeah.
Do you microwave
I'm
coffee?
sorry.
Who does that abomination? Thank you, Austin.
Although I realized in a survival situation, I think the reason why, if it's black coffee, it takes it better. It
takes it better.
I think the presence of any kind of half and half or milk or whatever in the coffee is what makes the microwaving process turn it into an abomination.
No, just microwaving. Mike, you.
No, it's still bad, but it's more tolerable.
Mike, I'm curious if you've heard about this thing that Americans think is okay. Which is making tea by boiling water by putting it in a microwave.
What? You
kettles,
can't boil
right?
water in a microwave.
Can you? Americans don't by default have kettles. Right?
Yes, apparently it is odd to have a kettle.
Of course
Troy,
Troy. You
may as well identify as a European. You don't count. Austin, do you have a kettle?
I have a kettle. I don't.
Okay.
I don't actually have. I don't use it that often.
Oh,
though.
thank God.
That's what the microwave's for, right?
Well, the thing is, what's the problem if boiling the water before you add anything to it? That I don't see why that would be any different.
There is ultimately no issue other than
it's just weird.
Just being weird. Dude, I find it very
in my case, I don't have a range or anything.
It's electric
with
kettle.
Which to boil water.
I have 2 Christmas presents for you now.
And a toilet seat cover.
I got you that, and we saw how that worked out. Does everybody know about this?
We're going to have to cycle back, guys. So talk to us about the toilet seat cover. That's a level of friendship I don't think I've ever achieved.
Do we not?
I've never bought
Does that not come up here?
Cover. I would buy someone
so
a day.
Troy bought Austin a toilet seat.
You don't understand. First of all,
walk us through.
It was not as much as it sounds like a practical gift. It was actually a humanitarian effort on my behalf, because not just for the visitors of his studio, but also to salvage what is the remnants of his dark soul. Because the problem is
lost cause.
Because Austin began. Schadenfreude has become a very popular word, especially with news of late. His specific brand of that is hearing the cries and pleas for help that emitted from his bathroom when anyone tried to touch the toilet at all.
What?
Because it was the jankiest toilet seat cover ever.
It was basically a Jenga tower. Just because 99% of the time I'm the only person around here, even under non-COVID environment.
And you like your bathroom visits to be challenging.
Terribly.
You like that extra,
builds character.
Austin is the most perfunctory person.
Working toilets.
Yeah.
The demon souls of bathrooms.
Yeah, what are you trying to get in easy mode?
Austin spent a month.
It delegitimizes the win if you know that other people are having an easier time going to the bathroom.
Austin spent a solid month walking around in shoes that he knowingly were making him bleed because
Well, that we did talk about here at one point because
that's come up before.
I did remember the slew of comments about my bloody socks.
What was wrong with the toilet seat? What was it? Was it just like it was off its hinge or something?
No. It didn't look. By the way, it wasn't like a Jenga thing because you can look at Jenga and go, "That's precarious. I shouldn't touch that." The problem is that I think he got to the point where he would perfectly set it to where it's like that looks like a functional toilet seat cover, and so guy or girl would go in there and touch it, and it would immediately fall off. And then it's like, oh, and it's just it's a bathroom, linoleum floor. So it's like, dang, bang, oh shit, and you're immediately embarrassed.
Such a weirdly
and you know that you're only like 10 feet
play
away.
to your guests. I love it.
Oh, it's the funniest.
I do find that really funny.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And if you dared sit on the thing, you were going for a ride because it was not going to stay in place. So for about 3 months, I had this toilet. I went to Target and I was like,
No, I can't. We have to
Go ahead.
pause because it is just so fucking funny how true. Where like someone, like we'd be in a conversation or a meeting, and it's like 2 hours. We're drinking coffee, we're drinking bourbon, and so then invariably it's like I gotta take a piss, and it's like yeah, in the back. And so I'm just sitting here. I start looking at my email or whatever, and then I just hear like this door shut, and then this muffled like fuck, and. It just every time it killed me. So I was like, at some point,
Side of your personality I've not encountered before us.
It
No,
is
I feel like it makes him make more
Machiavellian
sense
at
as a
best.
human.
it was so funny every time. I mean,
Terrible human being.
you know, if it's
Oh my
like,
god.
and of course, then Troy would like
Every
make
time
a show
walk
out
out,
of it. It would be a performance.
pledging
of course.
pledging to all of the gods, new and old. I swear, before the sun sets, you will have another toilet seat. And finally, I would like petition Angel. I was like, please, I've given up on him. You at least could please do something about it. Nope. And she's like, I cannot control him. I was like, I understand. So
That's your accent.
that's the
Oh,
worst
it's like she's in
Angel
the
ever.
room.
So terrible. So
love it.
finally, I
Oh,
showed
do
up.
carry, do carry.
I can't control him, innit?
There you go, exactly that. It's perfect.
Get off the Wi-Fi. Get off it. So I knocked
the
on the
router.
door, and he like opened the door one time, and I was like, today is my favorite day ever. It's like today's day. He's like, why? And I had just held it up, still shrink wrapped, the white round,
best part was
not
that
even elongated. You got like this toilet that was built in like back when there was like a plunger for it from the top. It's the kind of toilet that you would expect like somebody left Al Pacino a gun for, and he's gonna go meet with fucking Barzini and do him in.
No, it's true. In fairness, just so that it's clear to everyone, this is a commercial space
Yeah,
that my
yeah.
studio is not at home.
not at
so
home.
I inherited a very like small office space kind of.
How many years
toilet.
between you moving in and Troy providing the new toilet seat?
How much years?
How much time? Years.
Well, it wasn't broken the entire. It broke.
It was in
and
need of
then-
repair.
So
you didn't
and
inherit
just
it,
continually
sorry.
fell into.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, Austin was saying that he inherited this toilet, but you're saying now, your story's changed a little bit. Your story now is that the toilet seat broke after you moved there. So it
Well,
is
I've
your
been here
responsibility.
over 8 years,
Right.
and
Do
I
you know
moved
which
here
of your
actually.
guests broke it? Was it Troy and he's been feeling guilty and this was his way
No,
of
it-
making it up to you?
That's actually a good question. I have no memory of when it broke. I just know that it just shifted into a state of brokenness, and I just life moved on.
There was the
And,
before times and there were the after times. You don't know the exact point of transition. I
The
understand.
best
Very
part
zen
was
of you.
the best part was the purgatory of Troy having replaced it, but then it ended up in Pam's car, and every time he thought of it, she would be out of the house,
Yeah.
and he couldn't get it, and so it was purchased but inaccessible for a period of like weeks.
And even she
it was
like
amazing.
forgot for the longest time. First of all, kudos to her because I said when you go to Target, do me a favor. I said I need you to pick up a round toilet seat cover. She's like, "Why is it? Don't ask questions." And she just did it. That right there is love.
That's love.
So she did it, and then she forgot about it. And eventually she said, "Get this fucking toilet seat cover out of my car." And I was like, I need to get it out of there. And then something weird would happen. I would. see
To be
something on
clear,
Twitter.
I think that I am closer on this spectrum to the Austin than I am to the Troy.
What do you mean?
I will tolerate
What?
Very
things
validating.
for a long time because I don't care. I'll be like, it's broken, whatever, and I just don't care about it. Like right now, I have my coffee table absolutely sucks, so I bought a new one, and I have that sitting in a box in my apartment, and I have
Okay.
for 6 months. The issue is that I have to have this box here because the coffee table I have already built is too heavy for me by myself to get out of my apartment. And during COVID, there is no way for me to do it. So I'm just living with this shitty broken coffee table and this box with this other one in it and just like, I'll figure it out eventually. But
you're
it is
saving
a,
lives. You're saving
I
lives.
mean, look,
that's what I
look,
figure.
Also, still not a toilet. So
true.
Still not a toilet.
in our
Everything's
defense,
a toilet if
eventually
you've
the
got
sun will
goals, Troy. If you've got
expand.
dreams, it can be done.
In our defense, eventually the sun will expand and consume the earth, and none of this will matter. So,
Exactly, Austin.
Thus
Is it?
speaketh
Was it
the
that for you? Was it that
nihilist.
you just didn't care? You were just like, it's a minor inconvenience. Because I think that's how I am about a lot of things like that. I'm like, whatever. I'll fix
no,
it
I
later.
mean, but to Troy's point, that one did at some point it did become too hilarious to do anything about, and then, but then I'll have you know, one time we were having a meeting for the musical for chorus, and that was the tipping point. As I realized, okay, David Gator and Liam Messler, these, Ellie, everyone's going to be at the studio in mass. Laura Bailey's coming over.
Laura Bailey was probably the tipping point. It was like, look, you can do it to all these people.
Don't do
but
that
you
to
will
Laura
not do
Bailey.
that. How dare you disrespect the queen that is Laura Bailey?
No.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. So I did. Part of it was that the screws were all like broken and had to be kind of, they were like, they snapped off. And so it's like when you pull a tick out and the head stays in behind, like it needed actual repair. So we repair it. Troy used to come over, and the first thing he would do is check the bathroom to see, and then be like, God damn it. And so I set up a hidden camera.
That's right.
When he came over, I set up a hidden camera, not in the bathroom. I set up a hidden camera in the hallway to witness his reaction to the discovery of the fixed toilet. And of course, he walked right in and goes straight past it. And I was like,
Hey, everybody. Not for a while. He's
what
like,
a fucking
do you
nothing.
need to need to go to the bathroom? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm good. And I'm also an adult.
Pouring
man.
coffee down your throat.
Amazing. Well, we're now 15 minutes in, and I did try to intro the show, but technically
Nailing it.
failed. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Play, Watch, Listen. There's a case for me calling it toilets and stuff. I'm unsure. I'm Alanah Pearce. I'm joined by Troy Baker, Mike Bithell, and Austin Wintory.
And I feel like we need a big old disclaimer.
What?
We do need a
No,
disclaimer.
don't ever go to
Alanah.
the bathroom
Yeah,
at
what?
Austin's.
Austin, do you work at Sony?
Do you work at Sony?
Kinda.
Austin. Alanah does.
Yeah. So, for anyone who missed the announcement, I announced this week that I am now working at Sony Santa Monica Studio.
And just to point out, nobody missed the announcement. By the way, it was one of
that
the
was
largest
clear.
things to happen on Twitter. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody.
I don't know how that happened. It was very weird to see my own name trending. Very strange.
Did you freak out a little bit? You're like, why am I trending? Was there a part of you?
no one
that-
wants
What did I do
no one wants
wrong?
to see that. No one wants to see that.
Have I been cancelled?
Oh my
It was
God.
bound to happen eventually. No, it was very strange, but very exciting. Yeah, obviously it just means that anytime that we talk about anything that is, I guess, any kind of first party related, I just have to give you the disclaimer for FTC reasons that I am paid by Sony because I can't be perceived as endorsing something without legally telling you that I am an employee.
The Federal
That is-
Trade Commission?
Yeah.
I'm a contractor. I got none of that shit going on. I would very
you like
much,
a
I would
PS5?
very much like my
Send Austin all
PS5.
the free
I
stuff.
got a PS5.
Exactly
But I
my
paid for
department.
it.
I'll get you all PS5s, no worries.
I need a PS5. Sort me out, Alanah. Hook me up.
Yeah, I got you. 100% in control of all
And
of
a
that.
dev kit
That's
too.
what I've
Actually,
heard.
could
That's
be
what I've
useful.
Yes.
What's that dev kit?
Yes.
They're easier to get right now, dev kits, than actual retail consoles.
They probably are, huh?
They really are. They really are.
Yeah, I feel like I have friends in Australia who have dev kits that don't have PS5.
They don't even
To
work in the
people
game
watching this,
industry.
you cannot play
Your
games
parents-
on dev
your
kits.
parents.
I need to say this. I need to explain this to the audience. You cannot play retail games on dev kits. So there's these weird situations sometimes where you have a dev kit, but you can't actually play the games that come out for that console yet. And I've been in that
Interesting.
space
Interesting.
before, yeah. It's
Can
weird.
you
Why?
play a build? Could you
So-
play a
so,
build of the
yeah.
game?
Yes, and to be fair, I'm wrong for some console variants can play retail games, but usually no, usually not. You can play a build if you can get a build from like the developer. What used to exist was the best thing ever, which was DevNet, which was on Xbox 360. You could play, basically you had like Xbox Live Arcade, but it was everyone's dev builds of every game. So you could, if
That
you were a
sounds like a
developer,
horrible
it
security
was
nightmare.
amazing. Well, because we all signed
Sure.
NDAs, so like I would just
So
spend
was
my
Napster, by
lunchtimes-
the way.
yeah, it's true. But you'd spend like I'd spend like my lunchtimes like playing like half finished. I remember that's how I played a lot of the Telltale games. Like the early Telltale games was like me playing them on my Xbox, like with debug menus, like playing their dev builds because it was basically
I never played on an
developers
Xbox.
put it up to do that. Yeah,
I only played those games on iPad.
really. That's
And they were always weird. They were like, why?
I mean, that's how I first played them too. Actually, it was on iPad. It was one of my first like actual gripping narrative mobile experiences. I think.
Yeah.
I feel like I played
yes,
one of them on there and the performance was terrible, so I just went back to console.
Yes. They are definitely
your
better
tongue,
on
Mike.
console.
When we,
I think, ironically enough, I think it was Batman as well. I think it was Batman. I think it was a Troy joint.
In some cases, you were not wrong.
when we do
My case.
in the before times where concerts were a thing, and we do
What is this concert?
I know exactly.
Console.
Journey Live, we play on a PS3 dev kit, and
Still?
Why?
and because we had Sony, actually, the porting house, who I'm blanking the name of the studio, shamefully, but
That
the
game
folks that
You changed it, Austin. You've forgotten the people who put you there.
brutal. That one was loaded in the chamber and ready.
But it's also extra good because if anyone doesn't know, that game company does sound like also a made-up company name.
It's true.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I'm like, why are they laughing at this? I don't get this podcast.
No, this is a weird podcast. Isn't this a video games podcast?
No. Maybe it's who did the PS4 port. Now that I think of it, and it's a PS4 dev kit. But either way, someone who did a port of the game, because there were a few ports that happened along the way. But I guess it would have been the PS4 port. They did. They made us a special build that had all the music removed. So because there's no menu, there's no UI to do that like a lot of games have. And so to do our concert where all the music is live on stage, we needed a special one-off build. But we also, the result of which, to Mike's point, that it's a non-commercial copy of the game, we made a Journey Live PlayStation Network account, and we have to manually whitelist that account before every concert in order to still be able to connect to other players online so that they can play with us in Journey while we do the show. Which is, as a side note, it's always hilarious when you end the show, especially a really good performance where like everyone's on point and the audience is just there for it, and the game ends and it's like this hopefully very moving experience, and there's just that silence in the room, and then at the very end of the end credits, and it says companions met along the way, and they're all named like fucking
Butt dong
slappy
69.
dildo. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a perfect segue into post show. But
Austin, I know you've done that show a number of times. Do you still... I don't even know how to phrase the question. Do you still, if you are having one of those great shows where the audience is reacting and everything has gone according to plan, do you still have an emotional reaction to it, or is it just the same thing that you've done over and over again?
Well, Journey was one of those things that I've never been able to react the way normal players have, just by virtue of having worked on it. That's a familiar thing, I think, to all of us. It's just like you fundamentally can't get out from your inside out perspective.
Someone yesterday was like, "Oh, Alanah, this is a bummer because it means that you will have Santa Monica Studios game spoiled for you." And I was like, "Shit, that's true."
It is true. And
no!
So you've
Spoiled,
not experienced that though yet, have you? The kind of the whole being a part of the development cycle and therefore not ever being able to enjoy the things you make. It's like some kind of weird pact you make with the devil. You can make any game you want exist, but you can never truly enjoy it. It's kind of dark.
Yeah,
but good luck.
I
with your job.
disagree with that.
Yeah.
I
Go on.
Okay.
I absolutely push against that because
Disagree with me,
it just
baby.
means it's the same thing as like, well, now that you've made a TV show, now that you've made a film, you can't enjoy it. It's like, no, because it's not. It's especially a game is so much larger than my own perspective, and especially as an actor, far larger than my contribution to it. So for me, the joy is always that's what that looked like. For you, it's a little bit different because you're so intimately
You're in it
involved
every
and
day,
aware.
Right? That's the difference, yeah.
For me, it's like I had no idea that that's what that was going to look like. I had no idea that that's the way. Shadow of War was a little bit different for me because like I was more involved in that game from both. I didn't have any say so obviously over the design or the writing, but for understanding how these performances needed to be and how these scenes were going to shape out, I had to know things ahead of time. So the big narrative moments, I was still surprised. Sometimes I was like, wait a minute, that's not the shot that I chose. And it's like, nah. Which is a whole other lesson, learning how to let go of your your version of it. I had my version of that
I think
game.
that's very specific to acting in a way, though.
No, it's specific to directing. Like Joss Whedon was the one who was like, my job is to direct. Do you ever have any problems with, fighting with editors? He goes, no, it's not my job. My job is to direct that movie. And then once it moves down the vine to the next person's job, that's their job. And I let them do their job. And so the notion of the auteur, like Mike and I have always talked about, where it's just like, that's not really doing it all yourself is not that impressive anymore. No. Being able to replicate your vision and your perspective and being able to work alongside somebody like Steven Spielberg, which it's like, I direct directors and I really replicate myself in that team, to me is far more impressive. Like that's leadership. So that's what I learned that the hard way. I walked onto the set of Shadow of War thinking that I had to know everything about directing, and I bossed people around. Like I tried to rule that stage, and by the end of
that's
it,
where it comes from insecurity, right? You just kind of
absolutely,
yeah.
That's the whole place that it comes from. Is I didn't feel like I had to prove myself because I was afraid that I couldn't do the gig, and by the end of it, I was like, no, if you want to ask a question about that, you need to go to that guy. He's gonna perfect. I love that shot. I trust you. It's so much more rooted in trust than it is in pride, and it's just a far better way to work with people. I just learned.
I feel like I approach everything, and I'm sure we've spoken about this before, by asking like loads of questions and not being ashamed of asking questions. And I don't think that's ever been received poorly. I don't think anyone's ever been like, you ask too many questions. You're not supposed to be learning. Everyone has always been like, great question.
Yeah.
No, it would be a red flag if someone just acted like, I know everything. I got this. I got nothing to learn. Like if someone's just sitting there stewing in their own glory, massive issues.
I can do that maybe a little bit with hosting stuff sometimes, in that like, if I have like a 2-hour tech rehearsal and I'm like, we know how to do this. We're gonna be fine. Like that one, I wouldn't say it's basking in my own glory, but it's more of a like, I've done this so many times to this exact thing, and I get that you need me to be here to reassure you, but this is going to be perfect. To the extent that sometimes I'm like, does this need okay, we need a tech rehearsal. That is definitely a thing, but I feel like with anything where you're directing people or working with teams in a different way, to just like, let me speak on camera is a whole other ballgame.
But it is, like you say, it's as much about reassuring other people as anything. Like I have had it before where I remember when I've hired like very junior people who it's like their first game or whatever, and they'll ask questions that like more seasoned, experienced developers will definitely like, no, well, you don't need to worry about that, or that will just work itself out kind of questions. And definitely like very early on when I was first working like as a director with very junior people, I was more dismissive than I could have been in those early conversations where I was like, don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. Like, and I thought that was enough, but actually what I realized as I kind of went on was, no, taking 5 minutes now to like explain to them why it's going to be fine and answer their question actually saves like weeks of them being worried about something, because it's the problem with like when you're a junior, you can't necessarily tell if the people you're working for and with are competent or not, so you can fall into a trap of not knowing whether the person you're talking to is in a hurry or stupid. And the easiest way to avoid that problem is to explain yourself, basically. So yeah, it's a lesson I learned.
I have a question then for our illustrious host. You are a seasoned writer. You are someone who has written short stories, novels, op-eds, editorials, articles, all sorts of stuff. Operas.
Several, yeah.
4 at least.
Yeah.
She's not
every episode of this podcast.
Every episode of this podcast.
Wrote this. Yeah.
That's the brilliance of it, by the way. Like that line that I just said.
Really good actors, not just Troy.
Yeah.
What was it like for you walking in that first day when you got the gig? And was there a feeling of yours that were you able to maintain that thing of just ask questions and just submit yourself to the humility of the process, or did you struggle with that imposter syndrome, or they're going to find
no, not even a tiny bit. So like I've had people be like, hope you don't get imposter syndrome, and I'm like, I don't. It's half that I've worked very hard to set myself up to be where I am, so I don't think that I have any of that kind of imposter syndrome, but I am a junior writer. I don't have any issues with being open about needing to learn things, even in the slightest, because I like learning so much. So that's always going to be a thing where I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Teach me how to do this, please. It would be very stupid for me to walk into Santa Monica Studios and be like, I'm here to tell you how to write as a critic. And I'm sure that they picked up that I'm not that kind of person in the interview process, which is part of it. So definitely not a problem for me at all.
What are you most excited about? Like what facet of being a writer are you most excited about working on or learning about or being able to expand upon that you currently have? Like, what are you like what excites you the most when you say, teach me something? You're like, what do I really want to learn? So I want to learn this. Can you nail that down?
Feel like I can nail that down. No. I guess when it comes to video game writing specifically, if I were to give you like a top level question of, answer of like, what am I excited to learn? I think how iterative the process is something that I've always been told about, but something that I am very interested to see in person is like for anything, for an item description. How many times does something like that potentially get rewritten and how many times doesn't it? And I think that kind of stuff is stuff that I just, having never seen it, am very interested to learn about. Because I've had friends who work in AAA write games and be like, hey, everything that I worked on for the last 6 months just got completely scrapped and we have to start over. And that's a thing that I've never had to deal with, is having something binned that I worked really hard on. I've certainly had, my Assassin's Creed Origins review was originally like 10,000 words, and obviously we had to cut that down. So I'm fine with killing my darlings. That's something that I definitely learned in university as well, is like you have to get rid of this stuff. But I have not had anything that I've worked on just completely be scrapped. And especially when you're working really hard on it, I feel like that's a very bizarre adjustment period that I know people who've worked in AAA writing have a really tough time with.
Austin and I were talking about this the other day. What do you think of the notion
Toilets?
of
Cannibalism.
Taking it back?
Yeah. A friend of mine who's a writer, and also he's one of the go-to people that punches up scripts for films, and because of that, he's probably written more he's definitely written more movies than he's ever been given credit for. And he's also worked in games. And I asked him one time about a project. He said, I was like, we're talking about writing with your heart. He goes, they get my skill and they get my experience, but they don't get my heart. And so Austin and I were having this conversation about, A, what do you think of that notion? And B, what gets your heart? And do you believe that you have to give your heart into your job? Or is there a level of,
I think I want to.
Even
I don't think I would be good at not.
But even if, like, what comes with that, like, let's say 6 months you devoted to building this character up, writing this world, their entire arc, everything, you got to know them, they're a real person, and they just pop their head in your door one day and go, oh, by the way, scrap that character. But we need you to now completely rebuild in this world and rewrite this character and do all of this from the ground up. Is there a level of diminishing return? Is there some kind of emotional attrition that is attached if that's the 4th time that's happened, the 5th time? Or is it like that's the gig?
I think that's probably a thing that, yeah, like I said, people in AAA game writing probably have to deal with. I mean, Mike, I feel like you could speak more to that, where I don't think I have had to. I think that I don't know if you guys saw, I recently put together an accessibility award show. That was, I had spoken about that on the show before. Troy was in it. I don't know if you saw.
I didn't get a chance to watch, but congrats on that.
Thank you.
I loved your sentiment that you shared at some point in the wake of the nuclear blast, which was your announcement saying like, just go do the thing. And
well,
using that as
yeah.
an
So
example.
the reality of that show was it was a thing that I created, pitched last year. To an entirely separate team of people. My attitude being, this is something that I think that we need to do from the perspective of, I think an award show is a very good way to make more developers aware of these things, to try to push that further in the medium. So I pitched it a full year ago, was not in partnership with Able Gamers at that point in time. And then COVID happened and everyone dropped out, which, I always knew that I would be EPing and writing and hosting it because that seemed like the easiest way to do it. So I always knew that I would have to do all of that, but I couldn't do it without any support. So it became really hard, and I was like, this show is just done. We'll just have to bank it for next year. And then The Last of Us Part 2 came out, and it has more accessibility options than any other video game ever made. And I had this moment of watching some of the disabled community talking about how incredible that was for them. There was this video of this one girl who was crying because she was able to play the game, and it was just like this thing where I was like, just because this show got a lot harder doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. So yes, it got really fucking difficult, but I can still make it happen, just not necessarily in the way that I wanted. That's not a good enough excuse. So that's when I was like, okay, this team of people can't work with me. Very good friends with Steve Spahn, so I went to him, I pitched it to him, and I was like, I will do all of this, all the EPing. I fully funded the show. That was all my money. Alanah, Pearce, sponsor of Video Game Accessibility Awards.
Yeah, big logo above
Doritos next year, hopefully, but for me it was this year. And I was like, I need your help with giving me categories, because I can't do that by myself, and also with getting an actual player base of disabled gamers who can do the voting for us, because I didn't want to have anything to do with any of the awards processes themselves or any of the nominees. So it was still really hard. Like, that show was very difficult. And part of what made it a little bit easier is if that, like, I know that I can executive produce something and host it, then I'm like, then I don't have to worry about anyone else doing it, which meant it was an absurd amount of work. But my point there was, I still just did the thing, even if the thing was not the thing that we envisioned. We envisioned we did have sponsors. It was going to be a PAX live award show where we were going to fly people in and have proper awards. And like right now I'm dealing with all of our certificates for winners being late, which means that I'm going to have to probably mail those out next week. And it's just like, that's the reality of COVID, and it's a bummer. But I am very proud that we still put it together. And Steve Spahn and Able Gamers did such a phenomenal job of also being really careful with messaging and sensitivities of stuff that I was just not aware of. But I think that's a mantra that I've had pretty much my whole life, which is how any of my career has really occurred. A massive benefit that I know a lot of people don't have that I do have is that I know exactly what I want all the time. And I know a lot of people don't function that way, but I'm like, this is what I want to do. So here's the things that I think that I need to do that. So I'm going to do that. And I know that's not inherent for everyone, but for all content creation, and we said this on the show before, like I think Troy, I feel like you spoke about this recently, it's like, just start doing it. If you want to do anything, just do it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can fail the first time. It's better than not doing it at all.
Still
fail the fifth time.
20 games in, it's fine.
Yeah. This is
bad games, Mike Bithell. One day you'll have a hit.
One day
no, they just keep getting better.
Any day now.
One day, slowly. But I think but honestly, like, genuinely, I think that's the big one for me, is just in terms of getting stuff cancelled. And I've definitely, like, we joke occasionally about, like, putting out, like, a book of all of the games that we've tried to get made in the last 10 years that have just kind of fallen through. And there's some really good little ideas in there and stuff. But, like, the thing for me is always trying to focus on the experience of the production rather than the outcome. So, yes, you gave 6 months to writing something that got canned, but you got 6 months of experience, you got 6 months of learning. And the thing, as came up with Austin's example the other day about, his computer crashing and losing the work, the thing you make after those 6 months will be better than the thing you would have made 6 months previous. So there has been an achievement. Doesn't mean that it's not annoying as hell when someone destroys your work, but at the same time, like, I think I got a lot happier as a creator when I stopped worrying about the outcomes of the work and just started enjoying the work and tried to make that the focus. And my games got better as well as a result.
I will try to keep that in mind.
That is that's a very enlightening, refreshing, and inspiring perspective. Because the onus that is upon the person,
it's
not upon me then.
Philosophically kind of ponderous. I didn't enjoy it.
The only way that works is if I'm doing something that I truly love doing. Because if the whole gig is not the outcome, then that means I have to love what I'm doing. Because if I hate what I'm doing, but the outcome is worth it, then I can mitigate that fairly easily. It's like I'm making a shitload of money, or this is going to get me likes or whatever. So I don't want to do this. But if that's not the point, if the point is the process, this better be something I love to do.
Spend a lot more time on the process than you do on looking at the likes, though, don't you? That's the thing I think I've learned, is that if you're not enjoying the thing you're doing to earn the money, the praise, the whatever, then why are you? You're just wasting.
That's a
seconds on
massive one in content creation.
Yeah.
Is the amount of people who come to me and say, "How do I build a following?" The answer is always, you don't try. You just make content you like, and you are yourself. That's how you build a following. I never had any kind of goal of I want this amount of social media. Ever have I thought about that? It's always just been be genuine, be myself,
I want to
have fun.
trend on Twitter. That's the dream. That's
Trend on Twitter in California, and that was actually the goal. Was not that I wanted to write a AAA video game. It was that I wanted to figure out how to get my career to a point where I could
this
trend on
many
Twitter.
likes and it will all be worthwhile.
Yeah, I had to do the whole 2 weeks of not telling people where I was going and
Yeah.
making sure it was Sony, so all the people
all
who've
a
been calling
ruse.
me an Xbot get really
Holding
confused.
That energy, that fandom, that excitement. Yeah, that's great.
Exactly.
That said,
That was
extrinsic
actually
stuff is
really
sometimes
cool. I actually really love this era in gaming right now because the fact that like Phil Spencer reached out and was like, "Congratulations!" I feel like there's this whole. I wish that politics were as reach across the aisle as gaming platforms are. You know what I mean? Like that would be.
The stakes are a
I
little
wish
lower.
that were true.
The stakes are a little lower in games, though. Little lower.
I mean,
That's true.
Little lower,
almost as
little
much
lower
money in it
stakes.
though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the sorry, go ahead.
No, Austin.
Yeah, Austin, you go ahead. I disagree. Go ahead.
I like how Troy jumped in there on Alanah's behalf, though, to be like, no, Austin, please.
Austin, when you're ready, mate, please go for it. Seriously, just
Go
jump
ahead,
in.
Austin. Austin.
The whole
Austin, we
thing
want to
No,
hear
go
it,
ahead.
man. Seriously, please.
No, go on.
about
You're
it
muted.
being the sort of
We can't hear you, Austin. Your audio's gone.
motherfucker.
I could manually mute you for the joke, but I don't. Sorry, Austin, go ahead.
Wait, are you actually fucking with me?
Sorry, what was it? Go ahead.
Motherfucker. God damn it. All right.
Hold on, guys. I'm getting another call.
No, actually, I've got a hard out.
This is because of the fucking toilet seat. Oh, brutal.
Oh, I love this podcast. We're
And,
so
you know,
dumb.
My coffee is empty, so I can't even have like a reconciliation, like commiseration coffee
Sorry,
swig.
Austin, I love you. Please go ahead.
I don't even know what's going on anymore. I'm suddenly like in that mode where I'm looking around going like, am I wearing pants?
Like
What
you
the fuck
feel
is happening
high
now?
right now, don't you?
Yeah, exactly,
Everyone
exactly.
else is
I feel like one way or another,
everyone else is being
Exactly.
real weird right now, man.
I know.
Oh.
Oh gosh. I genuinely.
Please, Austin, when you're ready.
At least to Zoom's credit, when you mute me and I talk, it flashes on screen. You know you're muted right now, and so I was like,
Yeah.
that one, you didn't get past me.
You're muted right now.
I didn't want to be
You're
fair.
muted right now.
Please go ahead.
You didn't want to. I don't even know what the fuck I was gonna say.
I know we derailed you pretty hard there. What were we talking about?
It was. I'm
Credits.
sure it wasn't.
That's
I'm
where
sure
the
it
credits
wasn't. Exactly. Yeah, that was the final draft of The Sopranos in action. No, well, I know what it was. It was about the whole like, can you give your heart? Can you? Is it worth that? Because yeah, for me, absolutely. I don't know how not to. Like, there are jobs, even just in demoing and, like auditioning, the composer version of auditioning to get jobs. Like, there are some out there that I have swung so hard to get and then didn't. And it still bothers me. And not that I resent them for finding something else. Like someone else, that's cool. Like, that's their job. Mm-hmm. I did my role. They did theirs. And all props to the person who did. But I invested so much in like dreaming about the raw clay of their thing and what I could do with it, and just got so excited. And never mind the times that it's like you're hiring orchestras and just going all in on that pitch and investing enormous amounts of time and money and all that.
I always
Like,
forget that you sometimes to pitch have to spend money. It's
Yeah,
such a
my
unique...
auditions, what I can't boo-hoo about an audition or a meeting that didn't go well. Also, I was like, cool, I spent $5,000 in 6 months, you know,
Yeah.
and I didn't get the gig. I'm like, God, it's so much easier. Even as a writer, you could do a writing sample. You're like, that wasn't that bad. I did
So, like,
I did
Made
a pass
entire
on that.
games.
You can't get caught up on rejection.
Mm.
And you're the better for it. Like, and
Are
'cause
you?
that's- Am I? Yeah, I'm a better composer if nothing else. And plus, especially just purely practically, those times where I went into the studio, hired an orchestra, every time you step up at bat in that particular world, that's you're acquiring mileage that is hard to come by. So like, you just don't get to stand in front of an orchestra every day. So even if I'm buying my way into it occasionally as a byproduct of a demo, like that's still time with my engineer, with musicians. Like that's invaluable experience. That's worth it just because, you don't get that every day. It's so.
Future Alanah jumping in with another note here before this conversation starts. Just for the record, because optically it's a little bit strange now, this was recorded before the Game Awards nominees were announced. Thus, I did not know that I was going to be nominated for the Content Creator Award leading into this conversation, but I stand by everything that I said. Okay, bye.
But to your point, though, the thing I realized something else I was going to bring up is there's an actor friend of mine, this guy, J. August Richards, who was Gunn on Angel, if you ever watched Angel, but he played Deathlock in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Amazing guy. We've been friends for almost 15 years now, and he's one of these super, like, he's very very philosophical and thoughtful, and always kind of checking himself.
You're describing Troy.
Yeah,
Friends for 15 years.
I love you right now.
I wish I'd known
philosophical.
Troy that long. But I remember one time he and I talking, and this was early on before I'd really learned a lot of the lessons that I wouldn't be able to survive without, but kind of apropos what we're talking about. I remember him saying, he was like, how many Emmy-winning TV actors I know that are fucking miserable, or Oscar-winning directors that are fucking miserable. He's like, when you place your dreams on the prize or on any tangible point on the map, instead of it being about the road,
Yeah, man.
you're just no amount's ever going to be satisfied, no matter what it is. And I remember he told
Chasing
me that,
awards is something that I think is almost like chasing achievements. Like, it's a thing that you could do, and I say this as someone who's never done it, but it's a thing that you could do to add an extra bar. But I think if that is your goal, is I want to be an award-winning whatever. What does that mean to you as a human?
I know that feeling. I chased that because I wanted that validation. And the moment that I wanted that validation was it started in the scene that I felt was going to get me that award, that was going to get me that validation. And I chased that feeling all the way down to the finish line until I was sitting in the audience in London at the BAFTAs. And I didn't get it. And I didn't realize in that moment how badly I wanted that and how desperately I was clutching after that prize until the award show is over, the champagne reception is over, the after party is over, and I'm back in my hotel room, and I am empty. And your boy had himself a good cry. And I had I remember I remember exactly where I was. I remember the layout of the room and everything. And I literally had that cliche pose of hands on the sink, looking at myself in the mirror. And I looked at myself and I said, it can't be about this. It can't be about this. It doesn't change your work. And the truth is, Ashley deserved it. And if that means that somebody loses, so be it, because that's the truth. It doesn't change the work that you do. And that was a tough lesson for me to learn. But it was in that moment that I resigned myself to the fact that I will never, ever, ever again. The enmity that can bring and the collusion that can bring between, or occlusion between friendships is like, it can't be this, man. Don't chase the awards. Don't chase the accolades. Don't chase the validation. The process, the road, that is the gig. That is
well,
the
and how
gig.
many
Commit to
and
being
how
the
many
journeyman and
thousands?
live it.
Yeah.
How many thousands of people, probably even in that moment that you were in the room feeling sorry for yourself, were thinking, my exposure to the character arc of Joel has made me a better person.
Sure.
Or like, I think differently about life because of like all the things that really matter were happening in that moment. And that thing made you blind to it. Although I do fantasize that
We all
someday,
fantasize, Austin. That's how we got here.
my fantasy is that you'll win a BAFTA, and then some young actor will come up to you, like maybe someone who you beat that night is going to come up to you, and they're going to be a fucking wreck, and you're going to be like,
Dude.
I've been on both sides.
I wish you was.
It's hard out there.
I think
Gotta let it go.
It really doesn't matter.
That was my audition for the role of young Joel.
It's good.
I-
No, it worked really well.
The beard sold it.
I think it's an important journey to go through. I don't think there's any shame in being. I think a lot of people have grown on an emotional level by not winning a BAFTA over the years. I think that's probably the origin story of a lot. Like genuinely, I'm not taking the piss out of you. I think that's a important step to go through. I think that's something that makes sense. And the great thing, of course, is it doesn't actually matter. Like, because later, whenever I do anything with BAFTA, I still on the blurb it says the BAFTA winning game developer Mike Bithell. I've never won a BAFTA. People just think I did. And it's
What?
Yeah.
That's some Mandela effect shit
It's
right
some
there. What are
Mandela
you
effect
talking
shit.
about? What?
I thought you
Doesn't
won a
matter.
BAFTA.
Have you not won a BAFTA, Troy?
No.
I
Nominated 3
genuinely
times. 1, 2,
assumed
3,
I would
3
put
times.
I would put money on it. Like, if someone said to me, has Troy won a BAFTA, I'd put money on it. People just assume that if you've had a career long enough and they've heard of some of your stuff, you would have awards.
Kai Lang.
They just give you one. If you're Nolan North, they just give you
That's
one.
the, well,
Like,
that's the dream, right?
you
That's
just-
the dream. But my point is, it's that to me, that illustrates just how kind of, it's wonderful and it's great, but the job of awards, to my mind, is more to elevate people who aren't finding the audience elsewhere or who are at the start of their careers. Like, it's one of those ones where people just assume people just assume you have lots of awards. I don't think I've won more than like 2 or 3 awards in my career, but people just assume that Thomas Was Alone won everything. Thomas Was Alone has a 74 Metacritic. You know, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. Actually, I need to double check that. Is that
Dude, I
true?
love that.
Thomas Was Alone, it's my favorite thing about Thomas Was Alone. Every time we re-release Thomas Was Alone on a new platform, the Metacritic goes up by 5. Because people remember it being a better game than it was. It's like a crude acclaim. And what's interesting is you see that with every single game we've done. And it's a really, again, a very humbling thing of realizing, oh, this is kind of nonsense in a way. You know, it's okay.
Drop that shit on Twitch, man. Or sorry, on a Switch. Drop it on Twitch.
Thomas Was
I don't
Alone.
know.
Good, I'd watch
This
it.
is the guy that was
Yeah.
yelling for
It's
cars
coming.
to slow down, by the way.
It
I'm
was
gonna
gonna go there.
It is coming. It is coming to. Okay, no. Thomas Was Alone. Apologies. Is a 77 Metacritic. Okay, sorry. I think it was lower before, but
I'll
still
sell
not
yourself
like
short, mate.
you know. People assume higher. But that's my point. Is all of this is if you fixate on this stuff, then yeah, you're missing your life. You know, it's the work that's the fun. And there's
My-
still shit days
my
of work.
agent
Don't
put
get me
it-
wrong. Like, there's still days you don't enjoy your job, obviously. But like on the whole, you should be trying.
But you still would rather, even those days, you wouldn't trade it.
I've had
that's
real
the thing to
jobs. I'm
remember.
not going back. I'm not going back to a real job. You can't make me.
I feel like I, in a lot of ways, am a person who lives without credit. In that I don't get credited for anything that I do. So, like, even major publications for the Video Game Accessibility Awards were saying able gamers. The Able Gamers Award show. Naughty Dog tweeted out saying, "Thank you, able gamers." And that's the thing that they generally seem to have seen me as host, because woman who works on camera. Despite being the creator, writer, executive producer of the show. However, I don't fucking care. Like, I think my attitude has always been, You're never going to get credit from people who don't want to give you credit. There is no point fighting for validation of people that you don't know. Validate yourself. And I know that's very hard to do. People are not that self-assured. I know that that's not very easy to do. But I am much happier to see a Naughty Dog tweet out, full disclosure, I'm a Sony employee, tweet out.
I start as you
thanks to Able Gamers.
By bashing
the charity
Naughty Dog.
that I was trying to raise money for, who frankly did do a lot of work, and I couldn't have done it without them, than to credit me in any way whatsoever, because what would I get from that other than, 100 more people think that I hosted it. Like, that's all they'd think anyway. Like, it just doesn't matter. And I think I've had that attitude. Like, anyone who works with me closely will be like, I understand what you do, and I understand how hard you work. The praise from strangers is not something that I think is even feasible for me to chase, because I've definitely come to terms with, no matter what I accomplish in my career, it will never be of my own merit. It will always be because I'm a woman. That's happened with this new job announcement every step of the way. It'll always be like, well, because tits or whatever. So it's pointless to chase, but also like never going to fulfill you is the thing that I think I've seen in other people.
But that's
You
the
are
thing,
never going to feel validated.
That's the problem. Is if you go to strangers for validation, you also get you also feel attacked when those same strangers don't like you. And you kind of
True.
Yes.
You can't.
It
you
is
don't want to play to
trading-
the chorus. You want to play to the people around you, the people you care about.
Or yourself.
For yourself.
That's okay, too.
I-
Screw
dude,
it.
that
Yeah,
is-
I'm great.
It is.
I want my mum to be proud of me,
it
but
is
everyone else is like,
trading- It is trading in a dead currency, and it is something that from that moment forward, especially like 2016 forward, has been like, this can't be, it can't be this. What is it then? And the impermanence of identity that is presupposed on the whims of others who don't even know who they are, much less know who you are, especially when there's no real name attached to it, when it is Bungledong69, when it's just a screen name. How dare we allow that person to dictate who I am, what I do, what I'm worth, all of that shit, man.
69 is
It
the
is.
voice
You're
of the
absolutely
generation,
right.
though, in fairness.
Yeah, they make a lot of
It
good
is.
points.
I mean,
Yeah.
earlier work. The earlier work
That's
before
when
when
it
they were
was
on
good.
indie
Yeah, they
level,
sold out
indie label.
eventually,
That's the
but
one.
yeah,
Listen to that shit on
big
vinyl with
sellout.
headphones.
Yeah. Obviously, we're all.
Good luck labeling this, Alanah.
I think that I'm
What's this gonna be about?
literally going to title this, and I was trying to think of a way that I could wrap the conversation back into it. The episode about toilets. But then I was like, does anyone have any like video game development related anecdotes about toilets that I can in some way make informative as a fun fact?
Perspective. Toilets are the best summary of any game in which they appear. There's a solid game design thesis. You can tell a lot about a video game by what's going on with the toilet. Is the toilet interactive?
Brilliant.
Or is it purely aesthetic? No, there are blogs about this. Like, in terms of like when you see a toilet in a video game, more often than not, because a toilet is a common prop. It's something that every video game has.
By the way, it sounds like you're giving a David Cage talk right now, because David Cage 100% believes in this.
But it's true. So every game has a toilet in it. And every game, that toilet is going to represent.
Journey.
There are blogs about this. There are Twitter accounts like a toilet is going to represent the game it's in. So if you play Duke Nukem, the toilet's going to have a turd floating in it, and you can pick it up and throw it, because that's Duke Nukem. If there's a toilet in
Fallout's going to irradiate you, but might have some loot.
Right? If you play like a beautiful AAA cinematic third-person action game, you're going to walk in, the toilet is going to be the most beautiful toilet ever, but you're not going to be able to interact with it, and you're not going to be able to get within 6 feet of it, because it's going to be an invisible barrier.
This is blowing my mind right now. I feel like we're high. Are you serious right now?
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense.
A toilet, if you needed like an atomic value for video game design, like a baseline a calibration tool for what is the design and aesthetic ethos of a game development team, then you would need something that appears in all games, is irrelevant to core gameplay mechanics, that you could look at and go, how does this object, what does this tell us? How has this team approached this problem of having this object in their world? And a toilet is in every video game. So a toilet tells you a lot about
what
game
would have
design.
been, what would have been the perfect proof of this, which I don't think is actually true. But you know how some toilets, especially in Europe, have like the 2 different volume flush.
Yeah, I have that in
options?
my house.
Yeah, it's not
That's
like
what we
in
say. You're
hotels.
closet European. Man.
I also have a tea
You're
kettle.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. Of course you do. If that had been a feature of the toilets in Deus Ex, that would have been the perfect. Like you do it your way.
But when you
know,
flush a
that I would
toilet
have
in
felt
Deus
like
Ex, that attracts an enemy, right, or something. Like Hitman, you can flood bathrooms. I think you do it with the sinks rather than the toilet, so it doesn't fully track. But that's what I'm saying.
I
is
just
every
texted-
game
Dead
Shit.
Rising, I think the toilets are, I know one of them at least is a fast travel location, which you have to have in that game because the way that the timer works in that game.
that's funny.
You can.
I think he's onto
summarize
something. Oh my
any
God,
game
okay.
design.
Hold on.
I'm not, this is,
I
I've
wanted to
stolen
see
this.
if you're
This is
doing
not
bullshit.
A new thought I'm having. Yeah.
I just texted Neil, and I said, "What do you think about toilets and their role in video game design?" And he says, "Very important. Love them in Duke Nukem 3D."
Wow!
Now, all this tells us is that me and Neil Druckmann are exactly as pretentious as each other. That's all this tells us.
Oh my God!
No, I get it. I fully understand what you're saying. Like, I feel
How
like
much
if
do
I
y'all
think
think
of a video
toilets
game
will
and then I
cost?
think of the toilet is representative of the video game. Again, I feel like Fallout's a really good example. If you drink from it, you will be irradiated. But sometimes toilets also have loot in them. That's Fallout, the video
It's
game.
that also might be true here at my studio, by the way.
Yeah.
Good point.
as
Well,
a-
what your
reflective
toilets
of
you
like
as
a
about
human.
you and your view towards your guests, right? Like it's
Like I feel like
perfect.
Resident Evil, there's often someone hiding in the toilet. There's a zombie hiding in the toilet. That is
It's
totally a
shared metric,
thing.
Yeah. This is not an original
Mike-
thought, by the
Mike-
way. This is definitely I'm stealing this from like 50 other people. This is
Yeah.
it has
Still,
been posted
bravo
before.
for bringing it home.
I think you guys got me high. All right.
This is all a dream.
I was gonna say the thing I always pay attention to is stairs when it comes to game design. Is how a character's feet always. I'm like, how do they look walking upstairs though? Because I understand that's extremely difficult to do, and there are very few games where it looks like the character takes the individual steps. Deadly Premonition does it quite well.
I always noticed when we started to pivot towards ragdoll physics in like NPCs, and you would have a character where they would die at the top of the stairs but still register as being at the top, so there'd be this stiff cardboard thing extending out into space, and then eventually learning to actually cater to the shape of it. I thought, this is progress. I really appreciate a good realistic death fall down a staircase.
That's got to be hard to do. Also, hair physics. But toilets number one, as we have decided on this, the toilet episode. Play, watch, listen.
Flush, watch, listen.
Flush, watch, floushy, floosh.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
God, bye.